Hi everyone, Andy from Outside Xbox here to give you a look at Call of Juarez Gunslinger, the latest game in the Call of Juarez series and the first one to be a downloadable XBLA game. Now you may recall the last game in the series, Call of Juarez the Cartel, took place in the modern day and was dreadful.
DEA! FBI! Let me see your hands!
Sorry for the cock block.
So it's a relief that Gunslinger moves the action back to the Old West, where everyone wore fancy hats and said things like tarnation. The game opens with a former gunslinger named Silas Greaves dropping into a saloon to wet his whistle. Greaves is apparently famous around these parts thanks to dime novels and penny dreadfuls telling of his exploits, and the rest of the bar's patrons asked to hear stories about his adventures. Greaves apparently doesn't need much convincing as he launches straight into an hours-long story about everything he ever did.
I was paid a healthy bounty for Ringo and Curly Bill, and realized there was real money to be made. That's why I went after Henry Plummer.
The missions you play are Greaves' recollections, although his memory isn't everything it used to be, as details change and new features pop in as he suddenly remembers them. It's a neat concept, and the voice actor playing Silas helps sell the idea with his gravelly narration.
But luckily, a barn materialized as if right before my eyes. I scrambled up top to get a better view.
It also leaves you with a question of how much of what Silas is telling the bar patrons is true. He seems to have met just about every famous character from the Old West at some point during his storied bounty hunting career, from Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid to Jesse James and the Dalton brothers, taking on some of the most notorious outlaw gangs of the period single-handedly. Also, he's drunk.
Well, I've had more than a few drinks, and
while Silas's recollections might not be considered to be 100% historically accurate.
Yeah, I didn't kill Jesse James. Just wounded him bad enough to convince him to hang up his guns.
Each level is dotted with secret pickups which give you some proper historical background on the period and the real-life historical characters you'll meet, kind of like an Assassin's Creed Codex for the American Old West. They even use the facts to explain things like boss characters and human stamina, which I found pretty neat.
But Emmett Dalton survived the robbery in Coffeyville. He's the only Dalton who did.
They say he was shot 23 times.
Well, Dwight, who do you think put all those damn holes in him?
The actual gunslinging of the title is handled well. Weapons are all Old West staples, so you have a choice between various varieties of revolvers, shotguns and rifles, and each of them feels weighty to use. The revolvers have a satisfying crack to them, while shotguns genuinely feel like they could cut a man in half.
You hardly had to aim for that.
As you take out enemies, you earn XP, which you can use to level yourself up in one of 3 different skill trees: Gunslinger, Ranger and Trapper, which basically correspond to pistols, rifles and shotguns. The Gunslinger tree, for example, will let you dual-wield revolvers, reload them quickly while the chamber is spinning, and eventually unlock a fancy engraved revolver that does extra damage. As with any game like this, combat can start to get a little repetitive, but there are some nice touches which can help keep things interesting. You have a concentration bar which you can use to slow down time and highlight enemies for quick and stylish dispatch. You also have a meter on the side of the screen called Sense of Death, which lets you avoid an otherwise fatal bullet and recharge your health if you can get a last-second dodge right.
Somebody else, aren't they? Why is that, I wonder?
Sometimes they'll even throw in a quick QTE to let you clear a room of baddies with cinematic ease. Not particularly challenging, but it does help break things up.
That's so There he is!
Each level usually ends with a boss fight. Most of the time these take the form of high noon style duels using the same inscrutable system from Call of Juarez Bound in Blood, where you have to balance your concentration and your hand position using the 2 sticks to give yourself a quicker draw time. You can also draw early if you don't mind getting a dishonourable note on your permanent record.
Some say I fought unfairly, but they weren't the ones looking him in the eye that day.
Hey, it's the Wild West out here, come on. It looks lovely and oozes with pulp cinema style whenever it can get away with it. At one point, even a gun gets its own badass intro. It's probably my favourite of the Juarez games also. Silas is a way more likeable protagonist than the series has ever had before, seeing as I hated all of the McCalls from the previous games, and the historical layer on top is a really nice touch. Once you're done with a lengthy campaign, there's also an arcade mode where you have to string together kill combos for as long as possible, and duel mode where you can practice your dueling skills against a selection of Old West legends. Like Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, Call of Juarez Gunslinger is a solid FPS with an enjoyable hook available for a bargain price. If you're on the lookout for a stupid, fun Wild West shooter, look no further. Now, did I ever tell you about the time I reviewed Call of Juarez Gunslinger? Oh, it was amazing. I was on the back of this speeding truck and all these helicopters, they were chasing us, and RoboCop was there.